Hi, everybody. Please help me keep Greyhawk alive by liking this video and subscribing. It really does help. You can also become a member of the channel or support me on Patreon and get early access to my videos, exclusive content, free or at-cost copies of my Greyheim Adventures modules, and more. Thanks, and enjoy the show. I've long held that there are many Greyhawks, and I want to talk about it today on Greyhawk Grognard. So I think it's obvious that there are as many Greyhawks as there are Greyhawk DMs, right? My version of the World of Greyhawk is going to be different than John's version, which is going to be different than Eric's version, which is going to be different than each of us has our own campaign world and makes it their own. We're encouraged to do so. At least we were in the gold box. So, that goes without saying. But I think that the principle also applies to published versions of the setting. And I say this not like From the Ashes is a different Greyhawk than the Gold Box, because in that case you're seeing an evolution of like a prime timeline. I'm going to be using a lot of multiverse, MCU, Star Trek kind of analogies here to describe what I'm trying to depict. So we have, like, call it the prime timeline, which is the Gold Box, and which leads into from Greyhawk Wars, which leads into From the Ashes, which leads into The Adventure Begins, and you have that kind of continuity, which is a term I'm going to use. That's one Greyhawk continuity. Now, there's another published Greyhawk continuity, and that is Living Greyhawk. And I say that that is its own continuity because it does differ from that mainline continuity. There are different details that are given in the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer that are at variance with the things that we saw in the other mainstream continuities. It adds a lot of details that aren't mentioned. It makes connections that aren't in the original, that sort of thing. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it distinguishes itself from the mainline continuity. And then when you add in the fact that all of the different regional triads, they were pumping out all kinds of adventures and stuff, and there wasn't a lot of quality control and a lot of um, uh, you know, not a lot of effort was made to make sure that they weren't contradicting themselves in lore and so forth. Obviously they made an effort, but with that amount of volume, it would really be impossible to make sure to comb through everything and make sure it was all lining up. So that's why I put it in its own kind of offshoot continuity. Imagine those branching timelines that you see in Marvel, where you have like the mainline continuity and then one breaks off and goes here. So that's two. And then we have what I might call a third one, which is Gary Gygax's home campaign. And I give him pride of place because, technically that would count like one of your own Greyhawks, like we all have. But because it was his to begin with, I'm going to put that in its own continuity. And he already said publicly that his Greyhawk, the way he ran it, was different in a lot of subtle and some not so subtle ways. One big way is the shape of the continent of Orc, because that main line continuity includes that map of the world from Dragon Annual 1. I know a lot of people don't like it, but like it or not, it is part of that mainline continuity, and that was reinforced by the publication of Chainmail in 2001, which used that map and used that continuity, and so itself becomes part of that mainline continuity. So we have Gary's continuity over here, for his Greyhawk campaign, and then we have the published Troll Lord stuff, where he did the Castle Zagyig and Yigsburg and all that. Um, and whether or not that counts as a Greyhawk continuity is a fine line. I mean, the castle, I would argue, probably does, but does Yigsburg count as an offshoot of Greyhawk or is its own thing? That's kind of a muddled issue. And then now we have yet another thing that's happening. These Legends of Greyhawk, which was announced back in December. I missed it until January. But apparently this is going to be some sort of new living Greyhawk thing that's run at conventions. Details are still fuzzy, but they're like it's going to start off at some convention in Chicago, Magic Con, I think it is, and the cons create the adventures for this continuity, and it's very vague as to whether or not they're going to build on each other or each one is individual or whatever. But so you have yet another continuity out there that's actually being published. It'll probably end up on DM's Guild at some point, just like the Adventurers Guild stuff does. But that's going to be its own thing in the same way. And then you have Greyhawk Reborn, which takes place, it's all centered around Kaoland and so forth. But that's meant to be sort of a successor to Living Greyhawk as well. And they have their own adventures and they have their own details that they're adding to the thing. So you have that's very much its own continuity that's also building off of that mainstream Greyhawk continuity. Then you have my own Greyheim Adventures, which yeah, it's changed for IP reasons, but you know, I make no, I don't really hide the fact that it's meant to be used with the World of Greyhawk. Um, and that forms its own continuity. Same thing with my Castle of Mad Archmage. That forms its own continuity out there. But it's all part of this same thing. Castle Entertainment, they do the same thing. They've published a whole gazillion adventures that are in its own continuity, but you kind of wink and nod know that it's meant to be used with Greyhawk. It uses a lot of near names and so forth. So you have all these continuities out there, and I'm sure there's many more that I've forgotten. Rob Kuntz has published a bunch of stuff from his original Greyhawk campaign that is in and of itself a variant off of that published TSR WotC mainstream continuity. So you got that out there too. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of stuff, and I apologize for doing so. But you have all those things going in parallel, and then another thing you've got are Gary's Gord the Rogue books. That is absolutely set in Greyhawk. But it's not the same Greyhawk as everybody else because a lot of the details don't line up, and as the books get going, they get farther and farther away from the published material, and it ends up, spoiler alert, blowing up the planet essentially, and and shifting to another reality. It's that's yet another one. So you've got Gary Gygax has three at least continuities out there. You could argue that when he brought in Rob to be the co-DM and they moved from Gary's uh, uh, 12 level dungeon to a big, huge, honking 30 level dungeon, that was a shift in the continuity as well. I mean, it just keeps going and multiplying, and you could just in your mind's eye, you can see the timelines kind of breaking up and diverging, just like in the TVA in Marvel. And I think that all of this stuff, while it's interesting and helpful to kind of separate out and tease out these different strands of continuity, what if you treated it like a variant reality in Marvel or some other thing? What if it was really an alternate universe? And they all existed side by side, and characters somehow, magically or whatever, could move from one to another, and things would look different, subtly different, and they'd wonder what's going on. Why do who's this Gord guy who's running around? I don't remember him in Greyhawk, or uh, you know you could picture the possibilities of doing these parallel worlds scenarios where you bop back and forth between the published mainstream continuity from the Gold Box, from the Ashes, uh, uh, Adventure Begins, and so on all the published modules. And then a character from that shows up in Living Greyhawk, which has its own subtle changes. And then they go to another one. They're in the Gord the Rogue books, and then they go and now they're in the Sagard the Barbarian books. The first one was in Greyhawk, but the rest seemed to not be. You could do all sorts of such cool things with this. What if you had and there's going to be tensors from all these different continuities walking around. What if one tensor meets another? It would be like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is why I titled the video this way. Where you have these variant tensors with different agendas and things going at each other, and then They could bring in adventurers from their respective worlds, and oh my God, you could do all kinds of such cool things with this. If you treat these different continuities, you can still have them be separate continuities. You know, Living Greyhawk is its own thing. Or the Rogue is its own thing. Published TSR is its own thing. But then you could have these crossovers between them. I think that not only solves the problem of what is canon and what isn't, because you have each continuity has its own canon. It all builds on the same material, but then it wildly diverges almost immediately. And then you could have people characters going from one to the other and trying to figure out what's going on. You could maybe even loop this within a time travel thing, or some gate or perks or something that takes you to another world, or one of your variants comes in. You could have like the Amber books, where you can use a magical device like the cards in the books to go from one near reality to the next. And as you go further and further and further, you're getting closer and closer to some platonic ideal of something or other. And you just all kinds of crazy things you could do to play with this and actually turn it into an aspect of your game. And I've now that I've been struck by this idea, I've got to try it. I've got to do something with this. And I'm gonna do something, but I would love to hear what you think about this. What do you think of my idea about these different continuities and then being able to hop between them, like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and trying to see, you're walking down the street of Greyhawk, and all of a sudden there's another you coming at you. Oh, there's all kinds of great stuff you can do with this. So anyway, what do you think of my idea? Let me know what you think in the comments, and I would love to hear your riffs on this concept. And heck, if somebody's actually done this before, I definitely want to hear about that. So, anywho, hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day, and stay safe from Pinkertons.
Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.